Hello, my name is T.R. Welling, and it appears that since this is day 4 on this sequence, what I'm going to do is I've been doing these recordings after I finish the pearl strings, because then it's almost like the pearl strings warm me up to doing these videos, which it appears that I'm going to be doing daily, at least for a while. Um, my T calendar is the Earth's orbit around the sun, and you'll find the I do about, give or take, 1 minute videos, 8 of them a day. At least for the last 4 days, I've been doing approximately 8 of them. At least I try to do 8 of them. Whether or not I post all 8 of them on my Facebook group, T Calendar, T space calendar, just my name, T. When I have been I've been doing these things, so please watch go to the T Calendar page and watch them. I'll also try to post them on the YouTube channel, but there's going to be per year there's like 3,000 of them, because it's 8 of them. Of course, that could also be, I could also add a ninth one for today's counts. If I had a ninth one for today's counts, that means there'll be 9 times 365 or 366, depending on, and that's thousands of videos. I'm not entirely certain that the YouTube would enjoy me posting 3,000 to 4,000 videos a day, but you never know, they might. Okay. Of course, that'd make it a whole lot easier to send it out into the world, because then all I have to do is create an 8-pack, a 9-pack of the YouTube links, and send them out per day, and you can watch what you want. And that make these things a whole lot easier. So I think I might do that. So what these videos are about is about describing my T calendar, which is the 8 or now 9 pearl strings. The one pearl string is about your life, the pearls of your existence, the pearls of your wisdom. And yes, this is partially where the pearl of wisdom concept came from, because this is the Temple of Venus in Rome used a pearl as a symbol of Venus, and the building was destroyed and rebuilt about 200 AD, and the original building's floor plan and original plans and such for the inside of it has been almost entirely obliterated. But I have a pretty good idea what the inside of that building looked like, and I'm trying to figure out a way to build a model of that building, so that I can show it. Also, I want to build a model of that building, as well as a perpetual fountain with a bit of a Pirates of the Caribbean type boat ride, from the Temple of Venus over to the Colosseum. Some kind of a Archimedes screw up to the Palace of Claudius, through the Palace of Claudius, aqueduct over to the Domus Julii, through the Domus Julii to the Temple of the Julii, cross the next aqueduct to the Temple of Venus, then through the Temple of Venus down, and then across back to the Colosseum. Then Archimedes screw up back up. So make a fountain of that seems pretty interesting, because the aqueducts are still in evidence of their existence. The Colosseum has some funky stuff with it, because there was an aqueduct to it before there was the Colosseum and after the Colosseum, and the Colosseum has a huge weird history to it, because the materials of the Colosseum used to be the Palace of Nero, the Domus Aurea, which actually translates to Domus land. Aurea is amber, and then it's a big, huge, tall building for the emperor. It's a palace, so you have the divineness, the amber divineness of it. So you have The technical definition of north, vertical, because before the compass, before magnetic north was rediscovered, north meant up, not north direction, that way. It meant up. So you have vertical, north, umber, divine, and the aurora, and then land, domus, land. So you have Northumberland. Well, Northumberland is a kingdom in the northeast Britain, and that's where the seat of power was for the king of Britain before it was the Stotoscone and such were taken out of there and put into Buckingham Palace, and for the last 500 or 600 years, 400 years, which is a long story. Anyway, that the Temple of Venus, the clergy wore a set of pearls, eight pearls as a choker necklace, and those eight pearls, eight pearl strings, were a sign of measurement of time, which basically I've taken those basic pearl strings and made them into and relabeled them as my T calendar. But and you have your own count, your own wrist pearl string, the wrist the wrist pearls, and your family would go on this side. So and then of course the earrings, for the pearl earrings for the people who have passed on. Your time counts, yours, your families. So symbolically, the pearls were not just aesthetic; they were a symbol of the lives of your family, which kind of sort of was similar to in the Harry Potter series, the family clock that was most noticeably mentioned in at the Weasley family. All members of the family had a dial on their on the clock, and instead of pointing at numbers of the day, it pointed at if they were okay, if they were home, if they were safe, if they were in jeopardy, the different aspects of that clock showed the family members and how they were doing. Well, that's basically the same thing as these pearl strings, just modified a little bit with poetic license. So you have the T calendar, pearl string T calendar in the Temple of Venus, but then you have Erdology. Now, what Erdology can be best translated and found in the ancient world is as the compound of the Vestal virgins. The compound of the Vestals, and related to computers. If you relate the compound of the Vestals to a computer, then you have basically the motherboard, the hard drive motherboard of the computer, and the temple of the Vestals is the active apps, the active applications of what's going on. So the Vestals would do the calculations, and they would take today's calculations and put them in the temple, so that anyone can come and go and read the information in the temple, and be able to have an idea about what's going on today, and possibly what will be going on tomorrow, based on the information from inside that temple, inside the round temple of the Vestals. The women it was a specifically female clergy. I'm guessing some effeminate men, but that's when you have a radically patriarchal culture that is not exactly tolerant of females, you're not going to get a lot of records about effeminate men. In fact, you're going to get most of the information about effeminate men will be systematically not accepted into history. And the Romans, Roman culture was replaced by the papal state, which also had a pretty significantly difficult time with any and all females, because females were for 1,000 years considered to be little more than they had the same status as slaves and cattle, which was just things you did things with to make yourself more powerful. You create families, you produce sons, and you then married your daughters off to other people of prominence to be able to gain more land, gain prominence, gain money, gain whatever. So the Erdology can be compared to the Vestals, and Venus and the Temple of Venus can be compared to my T calendars, which is based off the Elder Futhark. The eight fixed points in the Earth's orbit around the Sun, which is ironically what the Colosseum was designed to reflect. The orbit, the Colosseum is excessively close to the engineering for the Earth's orbit around the Sun. That elliptical is pretty close to what the astrophysicists tell us about the actual shape of the Earth's orbit around the Sun is the Colosseum. So there's some interesting stuff going on there. The materials from that make the Colosseum came from the Domus Aurea, which I said before, and the Domus Aurea, the materials to build the Domus Aurea came from King Solomon's temple, the temple of the guy who rebuilt King Solomon's temple after the first time it was destroyed, and starts with a Z, and so the temple was dismantled. The inside of the temple was started to just be dismantled by Emperor Claudius, which was a really, really good thing. If you follow the etymology of the situation, then Emperor Claudius was not just some jerk. Emperor Claudius was his pharaoh name. There's 5 people. There's 5 extraordinarily important people who lived in Rome at the same time, and they had a huge impact on all humanity. You have Simon Peter, you have Mark, you have Emperor Claudius, who the Romans hated. They hated Emperor Claudius more than they hated Simon Peter. So you have Simon Peter, you have Saint Mark, you have Emperor Claudius, you have that Jesus Christ dude who did some other stuff, and then you have Emmanuel, who these two were obviously dispatched at some point, and then the story about them doing something else after that were because the Emmanuel and Jesus Christ is the same person. That's the beginning of his pharaoh namings, but after the crucifixion, these 3 names came around. So what I theorize is that these 5 people were one. And with the tradition of Pharaoh having 5 names and one person having 5 names, and the Cleopatra no longer needing the title of Pharaoh because she was either and the whole Actium thing, and she being captured by Octavian and taken to Alexandria, and where she committed suicide. Pure, utter, complete, massive fiction. Never happened. The documentation at Actium was by 5 scribes were describing the details of the battle down to the second. Some days, weeks, months later, the same exact people captured a Cleopatra somewhere, somehow, somewhere, doing something. They captured her. Almost none of the details about what she was doing. Same people who documented down to the minute of the Battle of Actium. So at some point later, days, weeks, months, we don't know. We can only guess it's about 3 months later or something. And they capture her and then take her back to Alexandria, where she's imprisoned, where she's put under house arrest in her own palace, in her own bedroom. And she sneaks in an asp and commits suicide. And she commits suicide based on the facts and ideas that she was so in love with Anthony, who also committed suicide. Also not true. That she my great Anthony, I join you in death. Nothing could be farther from the truth. She was Pharaoh. She was co-emperor and Pharaoh. he was just high enough born of a landowner to be able to be in the military, and he was sufficient enough to be XO of Caesar of the Julii army, but he was way low born. I mean, hierarchical structure wise, his family barely qualified for anything. But he was a really good tactician, and he was a really, really good XO of the army. So he was allowed to rise through the ranks because he was really good at his job. But he wasn't anything more than just a low level pud knocker. And after Caesar was assassinated at Traitor's Post, which was renamed at 210 AD as the Umbilicus of Rome. When he was assassinated there, or more like executed there, he purposely failed the bow test, because he was most likely dying because he was pushing 60 or 70. A lifetime of battle, a lifetime of living on the road. He spent 30 years in the field. He conquered Gaul. He conquered part of Germany, the Rhine. He conquered part of the Britain. Went back, became emperor, and then headed to Egypt, and then conquered Egypt, which means that he legitimately took on the role of pharaoh, although he married the pharaoh. So that whole story is Senate fiction. That he wasn't pharaoh and that he didn't marry. Just because they didn't acknowledge the fact that he married Cleopatra does not change one little teeny tiny little thing. They married. She was co-emperor. He was co-pharaoh. So we have that. We have some facts and evidence situation going on. So she stops using the title of pharaoh approximately when she's 50 or 60, 70, possibly. So that title then passes to her son, who would be Tiberius. And all the stories about Tiberius are all, again, Roman propaganda, because they hated. Okay, could the Roman Senate have hated the Julii family more if they tried? Doubtful. So the title of pharaoh goes to Tiberius, who had a previous name, previous to being adopted by Octavian. Later, after the Actium situation, the Senate gave him his own pharaoh name of Augustus. So you have Octavian to Augustus, and you have whatever his name was into Tiberius, and then you have whatever his name was into Claudius. But then you have Claudius, and you have Saint Mark, and then you have Jesus Christ, and you have Simon Peter, and then you have Emmanuel. So, and each one of those people, the Roman Senate hated equally. I mean, disgustedly hated. So, there's no point. There's etymologically speaking, this is how the Roman Roman culture, the Roman Senate always talked badly, negatively, icky about their conquered foes. Is they would change the history to favor Rome and disfavor the history of whoever they were communicating about. So you have Jesus comes back to life after being dispatched during the crucifixion, which was done using the Memento Mori ceremony, and he then does some preaching, does some stuff, and then elevates himself to then is in body taken to heaven, which is almost identical to the story of Romulus, who at the end of his life he was lifted up to somewhere based on some kind of a tornado or something. And he went to fight the tornado, and he was picked up and never seen again. So that's same metaphor. But at that point in time, the Colosseum wouldn't be built for another multiple decades, thanks to Vespasian. And the palace of the Domus Aurea would also not be built for another decade or so, because the city of pillars that was there had to be destroyed first, and that was not destroyed until Nero was on the throne for a bit. And there's no evidence whatsoever that Nero was actually a member of the Julii family. None. His father is a fiction. The Germanicus never existed. He was a fiction created by the Senate. So Germanicus and so Nero's father, um, that one guy who was named, but not actually in reality, fathered or was uncle or great uncle to the first 3 or 4 emperors. He never existed. He was a Roman. He's a Roman fiction. He's a person to hide the true facts of who people were. So, but it was more acceptable for Anthony to be the grandfather of the emperors than it was for Caesar and Cleopatra to be the grandparents of the emperor, parents or grandparents of the emperors. That was unacceptable to them. Of course, there was a huge situation when Pompey erupted and killed Vespasian. That history is also proved to have been altered because the Roman history changed the date of the eruption of Pompeii by more than 6 months, which means that the death of Vespasian and the eruption of Pompeii could have happened on exactly the same day, and it's excessively likely that Vespasian was in Pompeii fighting, genociding Jews and Christians and such, in Pompeii when the erupted. But that would not have been okay, because if an emperor gets killed by a god and his claim to fame, his reason for existing is to restore Rome to Rome, is to restore the gods of Rome, is to make Rome great again, metaphor intended, and you literally get killed by a god, in this case Vulcan, as referring to yesterday's information about this. If you get killed by a god, then the population will go, wait a minute, maybe Christianity is not that bad. Well, although the word Christianity didn't exist yet, there was the ministry of Jesus and the ministry of Nero, Paul, the ministry of Paul, the ministry of Jesus, the ministry of Simon Peter, being the same guy. Then they were starting to aim here, and within, if the Senate had not have gotten a hold of the propaganda and changed the story, the population could have gone this direction, and this would have gone extinct, which would be actually kind of a nice thing, because then the entire Dark Ages would not have existed, would not have happened. Tens of thousands of books would not have been destroyed. Tens of thousands of people would not have been killed. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, the Vatican would not have killed for the next 1700 years. And all kinds of really, really bad things would not have happened. But the Colosseum was about gladiator fights, which are a byproduct of the stories of Hercules. And the temple of Hercules is basically the head, the crown of the Circus Maximus. If you draw a line straight down the middle of the Circus Maximus, extend it, it goes right to the center of the middle of Pompeii. So there's some weird sacred geometry going on here. So if you function and operate within that understanding, then you can start to work with and process the information that this story is really complicated and has a lot of little moving parts to it. Well, if you take all those little moving parts to it, which I covered a little bit yesterday, if you take the counts of Vespasian and the counts of the Colosseum and the counts of the Domus Aurea, and the counts of Hercules, and Pompeii, and the ministry of Simon Peter and the ministry of Paul, and you account for all this stuff, as well as the creation of the etymology of the counts of Christianity, and the pit underneath the Roman Forum West, and the Venus, and the whole Venus marrying Vulcan thing, and her affairs, and which is part of the meme story. The goddess Venus, her actions are very similar to that of, because she made her husband Vulcan a cuckold, and and was she was a she'd have gentleman callers, and every time he caught her, he would either make an earthquake or a volcano would erupt. Pompeii, Vesuvius eruption destroyed the city, which destroyed. Now, how the Roman culture managed to do this, to lean this way instead of that way, is because the followers of Jesus, followers of Simon Peter, which were growing by the day, because the crucifixion actually, well, the trial took place on Traitor's Post, the same place that Caesar and Romulus were executed, dispatched, whatever. The actual the west face, east face, Janus west and east face took place on the where the Vatican Hill used to be, which is where the Rock of Mars was before it was quarried and erased from existence. The east little hill on top of the Vatican Hill, which was no longer existed, about 2 or 3 months after the crucifixion of Jesus, it was erased and built into a wall to surround where it was, so that location would not turn into a pilgrimage site. So the east face was for crucifixion, and Jesus was put up there for a few hours until the senators got bored. They then took him down, which is a little bit harder than it sounds, because there's nails through bone, and it's more difficult than it sounds to remove the corpse from nailed on bones into wood, into not exactly soft, small and pine. It was they didn't put the bodies onto pine; they put them onto solid wood, and then they would then either litter or drag or carry the body from the little hill to the east to the little hill to the west, which contained the temple of Janus on that, and they would then do a certain ceremony that was highly inappropriate, where the individual would be then dispatched, and with a blade here, and then they would then carry the body back across the field of Mars, and then dumped into the pit. A whole Minotaur, Lapis Niger, the Umbilicus, the start of the Trojan War starts with Theseus volunteering to be a tribute to Crete, to be able to be sacrificed to the Minotaur. He was dumped in the pit, but he managed to identify the Minotaur, and then dispatch the Minotaur, and then find his way out, and then took that army back to the city of Poseidon, where he conquered the city and renamed it Athens. Although he renamed it for the Aten, Aten, which is the reason why the pyramids existed, is to make an Aten out of the pyramids. And you can see it easily if you use Google or satellite. You can just draw a line straight down the middle of each of the causeways, and for a couple hundred to 1,000 miles, and you'll see the Aten, Aten, appear fairly easily. But the pyramids, if you draw a dot in the middle of the Judephyrae, which is the farthest north, through the other pyramids down to the bent, this makes the double spine of Janus, which is the reason why the schema of Rome is Janus, the double-headed god of Janus. The old man winter facing west, and the baby new year facing east. That's how Western culture identifies Janus, as old man winter with the long beard, and baby new year, the new year. That's east and west face. There's lots of working parts in this situation. Erdology comes from the study of the Futhark. The T Calendar comes from the study of the Futhark, but I use the Futhark as the foundation for the mathematics. Arabic didn't exist yet. So the 1 through 9 numbers did not exist yet. So they had to use the number letter system that they had, which is the Elder Futhark, which is the oldest still formed language from Indo-European language. So you have the Earth's orbit around the sun and the 8 fixed points, and you use the Elder Futhark language, the characters of it for the number sequences, and you use those letters as a translation to be able to create words, because you have, as I've just explained to you, how to create words out of huge letter sequences, 20, 30, 40, 50 letter sequences, out of the numbers of those 8 fixed points, because each one of those 8 fixed points is a calendar. So you take the actual calendar, the month and day, and you take the time of year of when that count is prominent, and you take it's 1 day plus to 365. It's 365 minus 1 to the next the next fixed point. So you're counting up 365 and you're counting down 365. So that's each one of those each one of those numbers is, there's 2. So you have 4 numbers, 4 times 8, 32. 4 times 8 is 32. Wait a minute. 8, 16, 24. So you have 24 numbers. Sorry about that. So you have 24 numbers plus your 4 count, your counts, your own birth date, your birth date, your counts, the counts of the calendars of your parents, the counts of your grandparents, the how long have you lived in the place where you've lived, all the counts of your life then go into this, creates thousands, hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands of letter sequences. So those letter sequences will have repeat sequences within them. There's 4 or 5 or 6 letters every X amount of letters that will create a repeat pattern, and that repeat pattern that you can depend on is a word. So those words then create the story of your life. Now, other people will have their stories. You will have your story. So you need to. So as I continue to creating these things, I can figure out a way to break a program, or have someone build a program for me that will take these counts and it'll break down the story of your life for you, and I can actually build the dictionary, build the encyclopedia, so that the simple words come out, and then the more complicated concepts come from the information that's going around. But you also have to include the fact that the foundations for some of this work are those 30 or 40 or 50 stories revolving around the Roman Forum. And the Roman Forum actually is a lot more complicated than it sounds, because there's a copy of the Roman Forum in Salem, Massachusetts. It's called the House of the Seven Gables, which is one of the reasons why the House of the Seven Gables is one of the foundation stones that created the entire field of Gothic horror. So you have the amount of working gears going on here is intense. But it's all about finding out your story, so that you have an actual roadmap, using ancient technology, using ancient sciences, to be able to understand what's going on next in your life, and what will work and what won't work.